This season was a very injury-riddled season, and one of the teams that got hit with injuries the most were the Golden State Warriors, as injuries to a lot of their role players cost them in the play-in game, players like James Wiseman and Kelly Oubre, but the biggest injury of them all was obviously Klay Thompson, going down with another leg injury, as this time it was an ACL tear. But as we recently saw in the NBA draft lottery, the Golden State Warriors have received 2 lottery picks, with one of them being of the Minnesota Timberwolves, a part of the D'Angelo Russell trade, and the other being their own. And if that is the case, I believe that means the Warriors now have even more assets at their disposal, which brings them to a very interesting crossroads, which is what should they do next with the assets that they have. Because with Klay Thompson set to return next season and Steph Curry playing the best basketball of his career this past regular season, I think it's safe to say the Warriors have at least one more run left in them. And even if Klay Thompson is not going to be the Klay Thompson of old, they still have assets to get somebody else. But before we get started with this video and I get too deep into my bag, I would like to give a shout out to the sponsors, and that is StarStock. StarStock is a new and improved marketplace for sports card hobbyists to buy, sell, and invest in their favorite athletes. Their goal is to enable sports fans to instantly trade cards like never before. Sign up today with my promo code YoungMustard and receive $10 free whenever you make a deposit of $10 or more. Check out StarStock today. But without further ado, let's get back to the topic of this video, which is what will the potential future look like of the Golden State Warriors? Well, for starters, we have to identify the fact that the Golden State Warriors are at a crossroads. They could pick between 2 options of what they want to do. They could either A, keep the assets that they have and keep building for the future with those assets while having the players that you have in their primes, such as Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the guys left from the past. You can still have them while guys like James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins, and even the future draft picks that they have in this draft continue to develop and get better. And if that's the case, I have no issue with that, and I don't think any Warriors fan should have no issue with that. Even if you don't get another ring in the Steph Curry and Klay era, you still have players that can guarantee you something in the future. And with the history of your developmental staff, with players like Steph, Klay, and Draymond becoming the players that they became, I gotta say there is some level of faith that they should have that they can develop new stars. But then there is the negative of doing that, and last year in the draft is a perfect example of it, because you run the risk of wasting a guy like Steph Curry, one of his best seasons last year. And though they overachieved, let's be honest, Steph Curry is on a time clock because he is an aging point guard. He's not 25 or 26 anymore. He is in his early 30s, and with the injury history that he has on his resume, who knows how much longer he's going to be able to keep up elite play. I'm not even just talking about playing at an all-star level, I'm talking about playing at an MVP caliber level, because that's the season that he just had last year. A season like that this late into his career is not a good thing to be wasting on a team that did not even make the playoffs. And having James Wiseman as the pick that you made in order to better you for the future, and he comes out with a stinker of a rookie season that he had this past year, because yes, to all the Warriors and James Wiseman fans out there, he may have showed promise and some flashes, but that's really all it was, just flashes. Defensively, he did not look very sound and engaged whatsoever. Effort was there, but he just didn't really look that good on that side of the ball. But hopefully with time he can get better. Usually big men, it takes them a while to get adjusted into the NBA. But let's just be honest here, more than likely if LaMelo Ball pans out the way that a lot of people think he should, then LaMelo will probably be the better player among James Wiseman and him. But who knows? The future is uncertain, but as of now, looking at how things stand, LaMelo and you can even argue Tyrese Halliburton are going to be better players than Wiseman, and they were picked after him. So that's just one strikeout potentially. And this year, you're not getting Cade Cunningham, you're not getting Mobley, you're not getting any top 3 or top 5 pick. And yes, you do have 2 lottery picks, but those are assets you could move and push to the table to get somebody that you know is a guarantee to hoop, somebody that you know can contribute because they've proven it in the NBA. And I definitely think if the Warriors can do that, especially if they can get somebody in the front court to replace James Wiseman and play at an all-star to elite level in the future going forward, to pair alongside Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green, and the rest of those players, Andrew Wiggins in the cast, I definitely think that's something to consider, because yes, having young players is nice, but it is not a guarantee, as we've seen numerous times in the past that you can be the greatest evaluator of talent and still strike out because some players just don't pan out the way that a lot of us think. Ben Simmons is the perfect example of that. Came into the NBA and we all thought this was LeBron James 2.0, but right now he looks like he's going to be an athletic Draymond Green. Time changes everything, and that leads into the second option of what they can do, and that is trade the pick and the assets that they have on the roster. And I definitely think that is something that they also should consider, because there are some players on the market that they could trade for. And let's just start off with the first one, and that is Pascal Siakam. Now, Siakam is not somebody that I want the Warriors to trade for, but they do have assets and players that they could give up. They don't even have to give up both of the picks that they have in the first round, but if you just package one of them along with Wiseman, Kelly Oubre, and a sign and trade, of course, I definitely think that is something that the Raptors should do and pull the trigger on. Siakam is not going to be the #1 option that they probably hoped for. It was kind of false hope, let's just be real. I think a lot of us knew he was never going to be a #1, but it was something that we had to try out. They tried it out, it failed in the bubble, and this year they didn't even make the playoffs. So I think combining the assets that they would get in that transaction with the fact that they already have the #4 overall pick in the draft this year, I definitely think that is a nice way to kickstart your rebuild, and I think Siakam would be a perfect #2 option, as we've seen Siakam as a #2 option ironically against the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals in 2019 alongside Kawhi Leonard. Ball the hell out, and he was perfect in that role. And I think alongside shooters like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, he will have all the space in the world to operate, and I think that he will be a better version of Draymond Green, because defensively, yes, he will not bring you what Draymond brings you, but offensively, my goodness, he is way better than Draymond could even imagine being at this point in his career. You don't even have to trade Draymond, that's not what I'm saying here, but he is a better option to have the ball in his hands in late game situations. I mean, just imagine if instead of Draymond Green that Steph Curry passed it to, he passed it to Siakam. Siakam could easily take advantage of Steph's attention and score with his little Beyblade moves. But if you ask me, even though this trade benefits both sides in certain ways, I do think there are other players the Warriors should look at before they consider this transaction. And the first player is Christian Wood from the Houston Rockets. Now, Christian Wood is a guy that I like personally, because coming into the season, a lot of people were overlooking him. People were even questioning why I even had him in my free agency video in the off season that I made. And I was like, bro, Christian Wood is good. He was hooping in Detroit, and I'm very interested to see where he's going to go. And in Houston, he was a 20-point per game scorer on relatively solid shooting splits. Though defensively, he may not be the best in the world, he is relatively mobile, and I think that alongside Draymond Green in the front court, he can pick up a few things and get better. Now, as far as why the Rockets would do this trade, I have to say it really just depends on if they're that desperate, because even though Wood is a solid player, he is no superstar. I don't expect him to become Anthony Davis 2.0, even though he's kind of a baby AD offensively. And if the Rockets are really set in this rebuild, it's not like Christian Wood is some 21-year-old player, as he is turning 26 years old this September. And unless the Rockets are bringing in another star to pair alongside Christian Wood, which more than likely will not be happening, then I don't see the reason of keeping him just so he can put up solid numbers that aren't going to lead to that much wins. Even if the Rockets somehow manage to be a respectable team, they're going to be a first round exit if they somehow make the playoffs, and we all know that's just not going to happen anyways. Now, as far as the assets that they should give up to get Christian Wood from the Rockets, I think that the 2 lottery picks alongside Kelly Oubre and James Wiseman would be perfect, because the Rockets get a wing in Kelly Oubre who would be a sign and trade player, James Wiseman who's much younger than Christian Wood and still has has a boatloads of potential, and you're getting 2 more lottery picks. And combined with the 2nd overall pick that they already have in the draft, having 3 overall lottery picks to start off your rebuild is not a bad way at all, especially considering how you bombed the James Harden trade and you didn't get Karis LeVert or you didn't get Jared Allen, so you might as well get as much young talent as you possibly can right now, because Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and your 30-year-old rookie Jae'Sean Tate are not going to get the job done in the future. So I'm recording this after I made the original video, and I just want to say I want to add Daniel House to this trade, because as good as Christian Wood is, he's not good enough to be just the only thing traded for multiple 1st-round picks and James Wiseman and Kelly Oubre. Like, he's good, but he's not that good, you know. And I think that Daniel House would be a nice addition to the Warriors bench. He reminds me of, you know, those role players they had back in the day, like the Nick Youngs, the Omri Caspies, you know, the specialists. They can do one thing, and he's a solid team defender. I think, you know, Houston, they had switchable defense, and I definitely think he was solid in that area. And I think that if you add him to the Warriors bench, he can shoot the 3, he can play solid team defense, he can fit in a lot of lineups, he's flexible, he can play the 2 to the 4, and I definitely think the Warriors could use his flexibility offensively and defensively. So I just wanted to add that in there. By the way, make sure you subscribe to my 2nd channel. You'll get videos like this where I show my face and I just react to daily NBA news, games, do recaps, and I also will be doing reaction videos to articles or just NBA content, and football content will be coming soon. Make sure you subscribe to If I Must. The link is down below in the description box, and a card should have already popped up on the screen. Back to the video. But that then brings us to our final trade that is on the table, but more than likely, I gotta be honest, it will not happen. And you can see the thumbnail. It is Karl-Anthony Towns, because please, for the love of all things good in basketball, can we get Karl-Anthony Towns out of Minnesota? Because aside from the things that are happening in his personal life, which suck by the way, props to Cap for dealing with that like a champ, because only Lord knows what he's going through mentally. But as far as what's going on the court, it's depression. It's depression, and more depression to play for a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have no love lost for that team. They ruin everything they touch. Every career that has a Timberwolves jersey on it automatically gets stained and damaged. They ruined Kevin Garnett. They did nothing with him other than get him an MVP. Props for doing that. But outside that season, a majority of his time was spent some years missing the playoffs, other years losing in the 1st round. They had Kevin Love, didn't make the playoffs with him. Andrew Wiggins, they damaged him, went to the Warriors, and he was better all of a sudden. And that seems to be the theme of almost every single player that plays in Minnesota, because it seems like no matter how talented the players that they do have, it just doesn't amount to that much success. And Karl-Anthony Towns, please, he does not deserve this, as he is one of the most skilled offensive players in the NBA. Not just bigs, but offensive players. He is a great 3-point shooter, not just for a big, but for any player, shooting over 40% in multiple seasons of his NBA career. A solid post player that does struggle with physicality, but when you can space the floor in the front court, you belong in Golden State. And alongside Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, he will have all the space he wants to work in the post and mid-range game. And if he wants to space the floor, he's welcome to do that also. So as far as I'm concerned, the fit is already perfect to be in Golden State, because he will finally be in a positive winning culture, unlike the disgusting, smelly Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, as far as the assets to get him, let's just be honest here. Like I said, this will probably never happen, but the Warriors will have to give up a lot. I'm assuming, like the other trades, you got to give up Oubre and Wiseman, but I'm talking 4 first-round picks. Their 2 lottery picks this year, and their 2025 pick, and their 2023 first-round pick as well. So you're giving up 4 first-round picks, James Wiseman, who was a lottery pick himself, a top 3 pick I might add, and Kelly Oubre, who's a solid young player to have, injury prone, a little reckless, but he's a manageable contract that you can flip for even more assets if you don't want to keep him long term. So to me, it's not the best trade possible, and there are definitely other teams that could give you better packages, but it's not a bad trade at all. You're getting a young talent and you're getting a whole bunch of picks for Karl-Anthony Towns, because look, this whole thing with Anthony Edwards and D'Lo, Edwards had a solid rookie year and he seems really set on changing the culture of that team, and I'm happy for him, but I just don't think anybody could change the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're just like the Orlando Magic and the Sacramento Kings. They were created to suck. And as far as D'Angelo Russell, look, D'Lo is just not a winning player in my personal opinion, or at least he hasn't really shown that he can be a consistent winning player, and I think he, along with Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, is not really going to get the job done in Minnesota. He hasn't really been given his fair share of opportunities also, and considering his flaws on the defensive end and even some of his flaws offensively, combine that with his injury riddled past as of late, I gotta say I question how impactful he can be. And at the end of the day, Karl-Anthony Towns deserves better. This guy is not a rookie anymore. He's not a sophomore anymore, as next year will be his 7th season in the NBA at 26 years of age. Karl-Anthony Towns is not the same young player that we knew back in the day coming out of Kentucky as the first overall pick in the draft. He needs to start winning as soon as possible, and the Golden State Warriors need to finesse the Timberwolves just like they did out of that D'Angelo Russell trade, and getting Karl-Anthony Towns is just the final step of the plan. But before I wrap up this video, because that really is it for the trades and what I think they should do with the assets that they have if they're going to make one trade or transaction in the offseason, but let me know what you guys think the Warriors should do, because this is a very interesting thing. One move could ruin everything. We saw what the Celtics did, and yes, the Warriors, they're different. They actually have a legacy of recent championship history. The Celtics are holding on to their legacy of one championship over the last, like, what, 30 or something years? At least with the Warriors, they won as of late, and a lot of those players are still actively playing. But still, when you have a guy like Steph Curry, and he had the season that he just had, you want it to at least amount into something. And when you have a winning culture, eventually you want to go back to those glory days. You don't want it to just fade and be a distant memory in the past. But like I said, you guys let me know your opinions down below in the comments section. I would love to know what you guys think. I will interact with as many people as possible because I do read those comments. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and my second channel. The link is down below in the description box, as well as the links to my social media. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram. But this is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Y'all have a blessed day. Peace.